the head chief of the Canton Fire Department, and he's a friend of mine, and I called him and I asked him if he had information on this type of thing, and he said he would be glad to come give a seminar so that you guys could understand it a little better and hopefully get some information you can use to keep our students safe in the time to come. So I'm going to turn things over to Fire Chief Tom Guerra and let him go from there.
Okay, thanks. Can we get the lights off? Yes. And then all right, good afternoon. Hopefully, I'm glad. I wish you wouldn't say how good I am at technology, but that's when everything fails. All right, so I'm gonna just test out the laser pointer. That's good. And where do I aim the air? Oh, this is gonna be a real. The right arrow, correct? How about the left arrow? Not. Oops. Did I do that or you? What? Okay. Well, if not, you're going to have to do it. I'll just give you a cue. Okay. A little bit about myself. Man, I feel like this is distant learning here. I'll get a little closer to you guys. Although I hope you can see this. Again, my name's Tom Guerra, Fire Chief for Canton Fire Department, and I've been there since 1991. And it's been a great job, and I said it's been because in 1 month from today, I'm done. I'm retiring. And 2003, I was promoted to captain, 2006 battalion chief, and then I became chief in January of 2016. Worked as a firefighter paramedic, so worked my way up through from the bottom. Also, I'm on the hazmat exec board. If you look on the right, I'm also an instructor in hazmat. That's hazardous materials. The exec board kind of governs the Stark County area. I'm with the local emergency planning commission also. I'm just running down some stuff. I graduated from Bob Jones University, spent some time in the Marine Corps, and I'm an intelligence liaison with Homeland Security for the state of Ohio. That being said, today's topic, now don't do it, I'm going to see if this works, is on human trafficking. I hope that's what you're here for. Now, there's different ways to look at human trafficking. One is through the eyes of law enforcement, which I'm not. And you get into the legal questions on that. I'm going to just give you an overview of the human trafficking, and then also kind of like the scriptural side of it, the Christian side of looking at basically this world and what we're subject to out there. Sometimes it's reality TV doesn't really display just how bad things are when they do a 911 show, whether it's firefighting, EMS, and so forth. Unfortunately, on the EMS side, I've been on some pretty hideous calls when it comes to adults and especially young people. And I'm going to try not to make this a graphic representation with which it could be, but just the nature of the subject is kind of graphic, if you understand what I'm saying. So we'll move right along then. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called Taken. There's Taken 1, Taken 2, Taken 3. But it kind of like is an intro to what human trafficking is all about, where this guy, Liam Neeson's daughter, is abducted and so forth. And that's when we get into the definition of human trafficking. By the way, you can ask anytime, you can raise your hand, we can have a discussion. But I'll just let you know right now that I don't have the answers, a lot of hundreds of different questions, but I'll do the best I can to keep you informed here today. But the U.S. law defines human trafficking as the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel a person into a commercial sex acts or labor or services against his or her will. The one exception involves minors in commercial sex. Involving a minor into commercial sex is considered human trafficking, regardless of the presence of force, fraud, or coercion. Now, this is a kind of a wheel. It's hard to see from where you're sitting, but it gives kind of a circular kind of connection to both of these, sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And I'll just read you the major topics under. You have the coercion, like you talked about, intimidation, emotional abuse. You have isolation. You have denying, blaming, and minimizing. You have sexual abuse, physical abuse, using privilege, and economic abuse. So if you notice, there's a common term in there, abuse. And sometimes people, young people get fascinated at the beginning when it's talking about power, submission, sexual orientated stuff, and they'll get lured in to a situation they can't get out of. You can get out of it, it's very, very, very difficult, because it puts you under the thumb of somebody and under the gun of somebody and so forth. And then just to give you an example, about 13 years ago, one of our captains, who was not that old, had a heart attack. He was actually really in good shape. He was playing basketball, had a cardiac arrest, and died. Well, I went out to the place where they were working on him. Then I went to the emergency room. At the emergency room, his wife came in and his daughters came in. So as years go by, it's been about, I'm going to say about 13 years, maybe a little longer. I'm going to say about 6, 7 years ago, one of the daughters came up missing. And they didn't know what happened to her. I talked to a detective yesterday, or actually about 3 days ago, and the detective, they still have not found her. And there's been suspicion that she was abducted and used in human trafficking. And one avenue is she was murdered in a most gruesome way, and the other is they don't know what happened. It's still an open case. It's not a cold case. So this stuff is nothing to joke about. Nothing in crime is a joke about, but has this definitely, let's go back. It has this definitely very, very gruesome parts to it. Now, I just mentioned at the beginning, under human trafficking, there's what's called the labor trafficking or forced labor. Part of the element of human trafficking is to actually make a slave or a labor out of somebody and put them in a situation that they can't get out of by sheer force of making them work. You see a lot of that in foreign countries, and it's actually true in the U.S. So you can look under human trafficking, you can see this forced labor. The person's forced against their will. They're forced with the threat of violence. And it's not just kidnapping, it's actually taking the person and forcing them to work. And then you have a debt bondage. And this also goes over into the sex trafficking, where the person feels like they're indebted they owe an obligation to the person that has abducted them. And then you get into child labor, and if you look at the last line, 246 million exploited children between 5 and 17 years of age. So let's go into human trafficking by itself. Under the law, human trafficking crimes involve the act of compelling or coercing a person's labor, services, or commercial sex acts. There's recruiting, there's harboring, transporting, and obtaining. And again, and we'll go into a little later, but coercion can be subtle, overt, physical, or psychological. There's just something about, statistically, we're talking about for the most part, women, and young women at the beginning. And when it comes to this, even on what we call domestic calls, there's a tendency for a person, a lady, to not want to come forward about what is going on in their life. I'm trying to be nice about it. So let me give you a situation that's not even human trafficking. I go on a call, a woman's hit in the head with a ball bat by her boyfriend. Now the police are there, we're trying to take care of her. You know what she says? I love him and I don't want to press charges. I go on another call, woman laying on the couch, and I can go on, stuff like this. And she calls, and the guy returns to the scene, puts a knife to her throat, and we have a standoff going on in the living room. All right, and these are domestic. These are people that are married or they're friends, and I could go all the way into murder and where they're shooting each other and so forth. They got so bad that the state had to make a law years ago that said if a woman is being abused and she doesn't want to press charges, the state will press charges. It used to be if the lady didn't press charges, it was like hands off, there's not much we can do. She doesn't want to press charges. But they actually made a state law now that the state will interdict on that. And that kind of mindset goes into this. I don't want to get too deep into that. I'll just go to the next slide. It kind of says there's an action, means, and a purpose. The action gets into you induce the person, you recruit, you harbor, you transport, you provide. A young girl is provided. Let's just say she's a runaway. All right, so what happens to a runaway? Think about if you ran away right now, today, because let's say you're sick of your home, and you run away. Well, first thing you're going to do when you step outside, you're probably going to get cold. And if you got a coat, you're going to get cold in about 20 minutes. So now you need heat. All right. Well, then what are you going to do? Then in an hour or two, you're hungry. You need food. Now tonight, you need a place to sleep. You see, you've already depended on three things right away just by running away. Then you want to buy something, you don't have enough money, so now you got to make money. So this is where the person that is looking for somebody to traffic preys on. They prey on the girl that's wandering about the 7-Eleven looking for something to eat, wandering around maybe at the park, city park, over and over. Just and the person's in need. They don't want to go home. They're tired. They got in a fight. I've had it with my parents. I'll show them, and that's just the hook they need. Because I'll provide you a place to stay. I'll make sure you're fed. I'll make sure you even have clothes and everything that you need. Sometimes it's force. Sometimes it's fraud. But there's always coercion to it. The purpose, commercial sex or sex trafficking or labor trafficking, as we mentioned before. This is kind of small for you to see, but the left side deals with minor sex trafficking. And once again, the first one at the very top, right there, runaway children. Runaway children, number one right there. Poverty. Tired of living in the ghetto. I don't know if there's much ghetto around here, but maybe just poor standards. And you go to a higher class neighborhood and say, man, that's nice. I wish I had that. The guy says, well, I'll promise you all sorts of stuff. I might even get you a car when you get old enough. Membership in gangs, there's that belonging. And in Canton, we have multiple gangs. The city's actually divided in quadrants of gangs. We have Southwest Boys, a rated R gang. We have the Shore Street gang, and these are local gangs. They have their territories, and I've been to even fires where it'll be spray painted SWB, Southwest Boys. That's who set the fire. But what is a gang? A gang is a feeling of belonging to a group with certain kind of standards, certain kind of rules, certain kind of protection that you have belonging to a gang. So if you're trafficking to a gang, you might feel like you have some kind of protection element there. It gives you some kind of security. And then you have recruitment into sex trafficking. Where do they do it? Malls, corner stores, streets, friends' houses, truck stops. When I was going to college, I used to work security for a very, very large truck stop in South Carolina. And there were girls that would come in and spend their nights like on 85 semis in the lot, and we call lot lizards. I mean, that was just a nickname. But it's sad. This gets in some statistics. I'm not going to hit the statistics too much here because it kind of drives you crazy. But you can see Ohio's network of children's advocacy centers, 499, and some other statistics there. But anyway, if an adult willingly and independently engages in sexual activity for hire, then they are considered a prostitute. If a child engages in sexual activity for hire, then they're a victim of human trafficking. Now, sometimes we confuse prostitution with human trafficking. All right, and they're different. A prostitute, and they're actually in the Bible and in Proverbs. It talks about, in fact, more than just Proverbs, but it talks about the strange woman and so forth. All right, so a prostitute is an adult that has made the decision to have that kind of life. Now, not that there's not violence, murder. I've been on murders where they're shot and just left by the side of the road. If they, again, even the adult woman will feel, as she works her district, that she's protected by the John, all right? But, you know, when things go bad, they go real bad. And that person, a lot of times, is murdered. And sometimes it's a very brutal murder. Sometimes they're set on fire and so forth. So what Hollywood glamorizes, it's not the reality of life. You know, what they say is in Vegas, stays in Vegas. Well, you know, it's all through all these cities out here where there's a lot of evil, a lot of seduction. But that's prostitution when it comes to adults making a decision. Sex trafficking or human trafficking, again, deals with coercion, and it could be a minor. Again, this is kind of repetitive a little bit, but they're compelled to engage. It's involuntary. It's recruited. They're lured, enticed. And the younger you are, the easier it is to be seduced into this stuff. So again, running away from home, you think you're free, you're just putting yourself out there. It's like jumping off the seashore into the Amazon River thinking you're free to swim across where piranha are. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And that's what happens when you try to take things in your own hands. Freedom really isn't free. Again, a list here, but look at what's at the top again. Dysfunctional, broken families. It's that runaway syndrome. I want to leave home. We have someone in the fire department right now. Again, I'm trying to kind of be generic about it, but they don't live far from me, and one of their children has, over the last, let's say, 4 years, has had a lot of problems, and it's been very gradual. He's run away, he's run away, he's run away, they caught, come back. Still a juvenile right now, got into drugs. Then they had the family has 2 houses. They have one house they live in. Then they have like a vacant house by attached property. And the people from Youngstown didn't like their boy, so they came by, took an M16, shot up the house. One of the bullets went and hit the house at the top of the hill. Right now, the boy's in juvenile detention, what they call it the attention center. So he'll turn adult here next month, and if he messes up one more time, instead of the attention center, what they used to call detention center, he'll go to Stark County Jail. So this thing has gotten worse and worse and worse. Cell phone, internet, drugs, some use of drugs, not heroin, LSD, stuff like that. Well, actually, one time it was acid. But he's got a good family. He wants to be on his own. So you can just see him going down the steps. Like James says, lust, then sin, then death, you know. And his parents are brokenhearted about it. They've done the best they can. They're Christians. But again, as he's gotten older, hanging around the wrong people, luring him to the wrong thing, and now he's just a step away from going to the county jail. He might end up there by next month. So again, drug abuse, habitual runaway, just what I was talking about, truancy, skipping school, and just what I mentioned, multiple court, and courts trying to wake them up, but not awake. And then finally, sometimes it leads to something very bad, like aggressive behavior, homicide, depression, suicide. Again, I'll give you an example. I was on a call, walked up steps to upstairs apartment. There were 2 packing drums that you use for shipping. Stand there, and there were notes on each packing drum. The notes were written by the girl that had, on a pull-up bar, took like a sheet, strung it around her neck, stretched all the way to the floor, and killed herself. And she was 9 months pregnant. Her baby was due the next week. On the notes, she kissed both notes, and she wrote on the one, she wrote to her family, "I'm tired of living on the street. I'm tired of living with drugs. I've gone home to be with Jesus." The other one was a similar, like to her boyfriend. Put her picture there, and then she committed suicide. So again, what seemed to be freedom and away from parents, and I get to do whatever I want, and I'm running with the guy I want to run with, end up in killing herself, and her 9-month-old baby is still inside her. So it can lead to suicide. I know this is I'm not encouraging very much, but I'm just putting it right out there the way it is. I won't go down this whole list, but again, look at this one. Frequent absences from home, or reluctance to ride the school bus, reluctance to leave school activities, as if she doesn't want to go home. This is kind of traits. So sometimes a child will appear like, you know what, I don't even want to go home. Or sometimes they don't want to go to school. Sometimes they don't want to be around anybody. Attempts at running away again, attempts at suicide, defiant behavior. This goes into the age of consent. We'll talk about sexual stuff. For Ohio, it's 16 years old. These are various states here. Now, this is interesting. Traffic victims can be women, men, or boys, but look at the percentage that are women. It's 51% up here. 51%, 21% men, and then you get into the child trafficking, young children. And again, these are, excuse these pictures, but these are Canton pictures. Where does it happen? It happens 11th and Shore, but if you're not from Canton, just to give an example, these are just various Canton pictures. It happens in a nice housing area. It's always not just the ghettos. It can be a very nice housing area down at the convenience store where somebody's waiting to look at the wandering child to themselves and being offered, hey, a better life, money, just come with me. I'll take care of you. I don't blame you for being mad at your parents. They got too many rules, you know. Malls a big place for a lot of bad stuff. And that's Westfield Mall. It used to be called Belden Village, but that's Westfield Mall. This is an interesting motel in Canton. Don't ever stay here. First of all, it's filthy. And if you go online and read about it, they'll say there's broken glass and needles and everything inside. But this is the Canton Inn, and this is a place where what Vice does, they'll put a police officer dressed up, a female police officer, like a prostitute, to lure men, mostly men, and they'll say, meet me at the Canton Inn. The moment the guy drives his car to the Canton Inn into the parking lot, that's good enough of a violation of crime to go ahead and arrest him. They don't have to take him inside and do anything like that. So it's our notorious Canton Inn. And then, here, of course, here's a nice motel. Now, all of this is, I'm just showing you, this is what's on the internet if you don't know already. The internet's a terrible place as far as if you're naive of what goes on there, because there's a lot of bad stuff on the internet. You can find anything. When I've taken many courses in counterterrorism, some radiological, and some bomb making. You can go to the internet. You can find out how to make a bomb, how to, to go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get the ingredients to make pipe bombs. You can go on the internet to make meth. The first chemical suicide, that was a couple together that committed chemical suicide, was actually in Carroll County, just 200 yards from Stark County. It was a couple that met on the internet. She was a well-to-do young woman that had gone to New York City School for, I think, interior design. The guy was from, and she was from Ohio, and the guy was from Connecticut, and they met online to commit suicide. So they've got together, not to date, not to do anything else, but to kill themselves. And they got into a car, and she actually waited till she got off work. She purposely did it on a day off work. And in the evening, they went out looking for a place to commit suicide. They went to a graveyard in Carroll County and got stuck in the graveyard, and they didn't feel that was the right place to commit suicide. So they got unstuck from the graveyard and got the car down a side road, and then they took chemicals that you find online how to mix them, but they're shelf chemicals, and sat in the car, and they put signs in the windows, and they're chemical suicide signs that they hand wrote. Call hazmat, call police, something like, I think the third one was do not open, something like that, the window. They put the signs in the windows of the car. They put shot goggles on to protect their eyes in case it didn't work. I know it sounds bizarre. And then he turned around and started dumping these house chemicals in a bucket and made an exothermic reaction, which means it gives off heat and violent reaction. They had 3 bottles of each of this chemical, and again, this is household stuff, but it killed him so quick he couldn't get to the other bottles, all right? So, but again, all through the internet, all through the internet. These are all different websites on the internet, not good areas, but like, there's YouTube up there. Again, you can find a lot of stuff on YouTube. These are actually schools up where we're at. North Canton, Greene, Jackson. The stuff to the right, you know what it is? It's posting for sex trafficking. So it can be the most richest school in Stark County, that's our county, and you have this going on. Lake Blue Streaks, again, posting online. This is a long quote, but it's at the beginning of it's interesting. Human trafficking is often the darkest consequence of compounding vulnerabilities in people's lives. And that's so true. All right, so look at Ohio. It says here in 2019, Ohio was 14th out of all 50 states for the number of active criminal human trafficking cases making their way through the federal courts at 12. according to the Human Trafficking Institute. Federal prosecutors charged 4 new criminal human trafficking cases in Ohio. The report states Ohio ranks 9th in the United States in new cases. Now, I went to an ILO seminar. It wasn't last year because of COVID, but the fall of the year before, and we were 5th in human trafficking, 2nd in fentanyl deaths. So, again, different statistics, but they're all pointing that it's kind of bad for Ohio. So here's a case that went down in Mahoning County, which is not far away. 14 men arrested in Mahoning County for human trafficking. Now, I did an interesting search. I put this church in the middle of a 2-mile radius, all right? So your church is right there at that pin. And I put sex offenders in a 2-mile radius of your church, not 22, just a 2-mile radius. And this is what came up. This is a list of the names, and here are the people. So, if you think you're safe anywhere, you're not. Now, when you look at this, and I know it's hard for you to see, but let's take this first one, Gene DeGilio, whatever. All right, it's called a tier 2 sex offender. Then you go down here, Sean Calnan, tier 3 sex offender. Then you have a tier 1. So what are these? All right, there's 3 tiers. Tier 1 is someone who persistently harasses a minor for sexual favor, acts, stalks a minor with sexual motivation, sexual contact with a minor, illegal use of pornographic photos or video. It's a pretty bad guy or girl, and that's just a tier 1. Tier 2, someone who's encouraged a minor to act as a prostitute, a minor, to act as a prostitute, pays a minor for sexual acts, kidnapping a child with sexual intent, sexual contact with a child under 13, and kidnapping of someone over 18. You have them right around you. Tier 3, and remember, now we have this Sean Calnan as a tier 3, is someone who commits rape, sexual battery, aggravated murder with sexual motivation, murder with sexual motivation, kidnapping a minor, not by parent, kidnapping a minor to engage in sexual activity. So, again, that's why when you play outside, even outside your church, it's always good to have somebody out there making sure they're watching the kids. This isn't the days of Mayberry anymore. Now, I'm going to give you the next fact, not to make you feel better, but I did a 2-mile radius of my office. I don't have it up here. There were 199 sexual offenders. Now, again, that's in the city. I get it. But it just shows you how bad a society we're in nowadays. And we talked about areas for human trafficking. These are just different areas. And I'll skip that. Now, what I wanted to do, I'll cover 2 things here. Number 1 is your responsibility. And I just put some verses together. Some of them I know you know. It says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we're not ignorant of his devices. So the purpose of this, hopefully, is you realize that you don't want to be ignorant of Satan's devices. Sometimes you think, hey, I'm in the country, I'm good, I'm walking down the road, I'm fine. I'm not here to make you paranoid, but I'm here to realize the devil is like a lion walking about, seeking whom he may devour. All right, the Lord can protect you, but if you purposely go against the Lord's will, he might just let you have a little bit of what you want. All right? All right, so what do you want to do? Proverbs 1 says, my son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. And we talked about enticement, the word lure, that's enticing. The sex trafficker, the human trafficker wants to entice you into that trade. And like I said, they'll offer you money, comfort, anything to get you into that cycle. Because they know once they get in, you are held hostage to them. You will become afraid to get out. You will become afraid for your life. You will be in that circle. and they know they've got you. So right at the beginning, don't get enticed. All right, number one, guard your eyes. I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. We talked about the internet. All right, I use the internet, but you got to be very careful what you see on the internet. And there's always that lure of the internet. Hey, oh, that looks cool. I'll keep reading that, and it entices the eyes. It says, be not wise in thine own eyes, for fear the Lord and depart from evil. On the left-hand side here, it says, the eyes of God run to and fro through the whole earth. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. So his eyes know what your eyes are looking at. All right? Number two, guard your ears. A naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. He winketh with his eyes, he speaketh with his feet, he teacheth with his fingers. Frowardness is in his heart, he deviseth mischief continually, he soweth discord. Believe me, that guy that wants to lure you loves the fact that you don't get along with your brother or sister. You don't get along with your cousins. You don't get along with your parents. Yeah, I wouldn't get along with them either. I understand. I understand your problem. Third thing is guard your mind. 6 things doth the Lord hate. 7 are abomination to an heart that deviseth wicked imaginations. Remember in Genesis, every imagination of his heart was only evil continually. All right, and then it says in 2 Corinthians 4:4, whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is in the image of God, should shine unto them. It's the mind that he wants to blind. If he can get your mind, he's got everything. All right? It's not just the devil, it's those that serve the devil. And then, again, these are some more scriptures. Know and fear God. I put at the top here the Christian parent's responsibility. Know and fear God. Know and fix you. And know and fight for them. So, in other words, let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. So, you as a parent, you need to fear God. Then, you need to make sure you're walking right as a parent. I always put know and fix you. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. The flesh is weak. Be thou an example, believer, in word, conversation, charity, spirit, faith, and purity. So, God wants us, a parent, to be an example to the young people. And young people, you'll be older. You need to be an example to your siblings that are younger than you. And then when you get even older yet, to your children. Because that's what they look at. They look at examples. And then fight for them. It's surprising how many parents want to give up, and even in the Christian circles. They just had it up to here. I don't care if the person runs away. I'm glad to be gone. I remember once we got called to a house, and this lady came to the door, and she had it's a 2-year-old blonde girl. And she said, here. And I had the child, and I said, is this your child? She says, no. Somebody came up to my door and handed me this child and left. That's pretty bad, isn't it? They just abandoned the child, just knocked on the door, left the child, and left. There's many times where parents have just ran away from their responsibility. The cost of doing nothing. So I'm going to leave you with some pictures. I hope they stick in your mind. These are progression pictures, all right, of human trafficking, sex offenders that got caught up in it. Here's one. It says here, the mother was a known prostitute, arrested for soliciting at 19, forced to prostitute by a dealer, and pardon the spelling there, forced to transport drugs internally by a dealer. Look at the progression. Reported victim of sex abuse as a juvenile, suspected in sex abuse against juvenile. History of drug abuse begins at 22, abused by dealer and forced to prostitution. Again, there she is at 2002. There she is at 2008. First observed working streets at age of 16. First soliciting arrest at 19. Beaten by dealer and forced to prostitute for drugs. Again, look at the progression, or digression. Here's October of 99. She looks fairly normal, a little tired, not happy that she got arrested. There she is. Sin has an awful payment to it. Nobody could have told her here she'd end up like that. 27 separate booking photos, still trapped in a cycle of abuse. Once again, 2008, 2015. First arrest at 18 for soliciting a victim of trafficking at 20 years old, in prison for 2 years, murdered 2 months out of prison. There she is in 2000, 2004, then she gets murdered. Another progress, I don't have the years on this. Younger girl. That's what it does to you. Here's 2 different girls here. Look at this young girl. She could be going to your school right now looking nice and happy. That's what sin will do to you. Look at this one. They get beat up. They get pummeled, forced to take drugs. I've had where they've been held down in the street and injected with unknown drugs. Whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. And then I put we often sing this song here. Long my imprisoned spirit lay, fast bound in sin and nature's light. Thine eye diffused a quickening ray. I woke, the dungeon flamed with light. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I rose, went forth, and followed thee. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I rose, went forth, and followed thee. I put this because you right now might be doing stuff that nobody else knows about. You know, there's private things people do, and there's secret things people do. You might be tempted to do something like some of these young girls were tempted and succumbed to. My challenge to you today is stop right now. Don't even go down that road. No road like that leads to a happy ending. You have an opportunity in your life to loose yourself, and you might run into somebody like that. You never know. You might be run into somebody that gives you indication they're being abused or being trafficked and everything. Make sure you tell somebody about that. Any questions? Right. So, look, I'm old, but I'm not an old fogey, all right? So, not yet anyway. But I have a smartphone too, all right? So, as we know, these smartphones, I mean, when I said the internet, that doesn't mean you have to be at a PC, all right? You can be right on your phone. As you well know now, I've booked flights for this, booked motels with my cell phone. You can go to any site on your smartphone that you can with a personal computer or a laptop computer. In fact, I have an Apple Watch and the same thing, but I have a hard time like seeing it. But like the pastor says, this is just as dangerous as any laptop. So what can you do on it? You can do about anything you ever want. You can solicit yourself on there. There's sexting. Sexting is taking sexual pictures and sending to people or receiving it, all right? And again, the lure is right there. The problem nowadays, and I'll take you down memory lane since I'm 62 and going to be 63 next month. It used to be when I was a kid, and I don't want to get Mayberry on this, but when I was a kid, if you wanted to look at something pornographic, something you shouldn't look at, you literally weren't allowed, first of all, if you were young. But the second thing, you had to go to a physical location. I mean, you had to go to this place or that place and go there and walk in, and they would sell magazines, or they'd have magazines. Now it's not like that. It's all right here. It's instant right here on the cell phone. And you can be lured into looking, like I said, with your eyes. You can be lured into your mind on stuff, and you can be learning to actually meeting people, places. There's been, I mentioned this joint suicide that happened on the internet. There's been people. I'm having trouble hearing you. Save my phone. Sorry about that. But I feel like turning my watch off. I just went to Apple about a month ago, 2 months ago. I had all Samsung. But anyway, as a pastor mentioned, you got to really watch this. Now, in the adult world of it just working, we have to watch what we put on the internet and send off just for security matters. For example, if I'm putting something on hazardous materials or teaching and stuff, we have to watch that the outside agencies don't come in and are able to do it. So you have blocking filters. I have something called DuckDuckGo. Have you ever heard of that? DuckDuckGo, I mean, literally, if I go on it right now, I don't know if you know this, but like Google and Facebook, they will track you where you're going. Not on Facebook, not on Google. If I go to DuckDuckGo and I put, I don't know, let's say just, Moscow, I don't care. You'll see Google come in and try to track me where I'm going. Facebook will come in with the F, then DuckDuckGo cancels them out and blocks them from going. All right? So I'll give you this. 2 years ago, my 40th, my wife and I's 40th wedding anniversary, I told her, I said, when we get our 40th, if we ever make it there, we'll go to Switzerland. Because I was there as a kid, I want to go back. So on Tuesday, we flew out to Switzerland. So I go to Switzerland. I'll just tell you what happened. So we go to Switzerland for a week and a half, come back, and I say to my chief, I have a clerk, I say to him, I said, hey, this week is payday, right? He says, no, we got paid last week. I said, what are you talking about? And I'm on my phone looking at my bank account. And I said, I didn't get paid. So I called the auditor's office. I said, what's going on? I didn't get, because I have electronic deposit. They said, you got paid? I said, no, I didn't. Oh, no, it went to the other account you gave us. I said, I didn't give you another account. Oh, we have a signed document for you. It said that you want to deposit in a different account. I said, I was in Switzerland. I didn't give you any signed account. So I went over there, and here somebody had forged a change of pay form in on me and deposited in a different account in another part of the United States, which went to another account over Massachusetts. So the police got involved in the investigation. They tracked everything, but they couldn't catch the person that did it. I got my pay. The city was liable because they blew it. But my point is, you see what happens? There are people out there all the time trying to even steal your money, let alone your body, your mind, and your life. And people make money of anything by stealing physical things or stealing you and soliciting you. So you have to be extremely careful on your cell phones, who you talk to, what you talk to. Even, the government is a good thing, so it does not here to bash the government. I work for the government. But even on verbal conversations, 30 years ago, there were computers that would pick up catchphrases. So if you said, he wasn't alive 30 years ago, but like Osama bin Laden or Khalid Sheikh Mohammed or something like that, the computers kick on and start tracking your voice. And this is not conspiracy, it's just a fact. When I worked in an intelligence recruiting office in the Marine Corps, we would have to be inside locked doors with the radio playing all the time to disturb anything from wanting to shoot a sound gun at our glass and to pick up the vibrations off the glass to pick up our conversations, all right? So think of technology now. So be very, very careful, very, very careful how you use your phone and your laptop. Is that enough, like, on that issue? Do you have questions on that? Yes, sir. Well, I'll be honest. Does somebody get on TikTok or TikTok? I mean, TikTok. I got me saying TikTok. I have never been on it. I don't tweet. I'm becoming. I told somebody today. I don't know if you ever hear the phrase "going black." I said when I get out, I'm going black. That means I'm changing my emails because I have to keep my emails on my business card, everything like that. I'm changing my phone numbers, everything. I'm not paranoid. I just know what people do out there and how they trace you and track you. But TikTok, tweet, I mean, all these different sites. Who's on Twitter? All right. Okay. I just want to know. I don't have time for that stuff. In fact, I've shut down my Facebook account. I used to have a Facebook account. It's in the process of shutting down. It takes 30 days to shut down. And when you tell Facebook you want to shut it down, it takes 30 days to shut it down. So I'm in the process of shutting that down. It's just that there's been so much problems out there on the internet. I'm becoming a recluse. Unfortunately, we're stuck in the computer age, so there's so much you have to deal with it. All right. Any other questions on this stuff? Yes, go ahead. Hmm. Yep. Hmm. Right. And you're exactly right. Chat rooms, there's constant luring. Now, the police will try to lure people who are luring, you know what I mean? Sometimes they do that. When we do Work the Hall of Fame, they have a program. There's a lot of stuff. I could go on forever on this stuff. And I won't. But just real quick, I mean, they'll put a square. They can put a square. You're at the stadium, right? So you're taking pictures at the Hall of Fame. All right? They can put a box over a section of stands. And everybody that's sending pictures will pop up on that box. They can put a code word in there like bomb, shoot, stab, and all that. And anybody who's using those words and texting them, they'll pop up on it. When a drone goes up in the air anywhere near the Hall of Fame, when we have the game going, and the NFL has a restriction there, the FBI has a team up on the press box, and that drone will come up. They'll identify where the drone took off, who owns the drone, and they'll send SWAT over on that. So there's a lot of geeky stuff out there. But these chat rooms, the same thing. Somebody will fake that they're 15 years old or 18 years old with a 17-year-old. And then, again, that's that hook out there. They're trying to lure you in, and you start communicating, hey, there's a good place to get a nice meal. Now I'm going to go down to the steak restaurant and get a nice meal. If you want to stop by, stop by. And then that's how they start. I'm glad you brought that up about chat rooms. And a lot of people get lured in with that. Any other questions on that? I mean, yes. Well, there are people that are really good at hacking. They hack into the Pentagon, WikiLeaks and all that. There's all degrees of capabilities. And the U.S. uses our capabilities. Stuxnet was where we sent a program. Now it's out. Everybody knows about this. But I remember going to what's called an InfraGard. I was a member of InfraGard, which is a consortium between the FBI and businesses and people. But anyway, Stuxnet was a virus that was sent out to Iran to mess up their centrifuges and their nuclear producing processes about 5 years ago. At the seminar, they said, we don't know where it came from, you know, but it just devastated them. And yeah, people can get in through back doors. If you're online, you can get hacked, you can get attacked or so forth. So I'm not the greatest computer guru on that, but I've been made aware of a lot of different people out there not doing good things. Exactly. And make sure you know, and you know, if you don't know them, don't talk to them, and try to get to know people you don't know. You know, don't be don't be fishing out there. Yes. Yeah, yeah. There you go. That's human trafficking right there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that stuff will jump into your spam folder when you start blocking it, but it's still, you get inundated with all the time. And if you, again, the old school is you go to Vegas, and if you walk along the street in Vegas, you know, they give you cards like that. I mean, you know, where a lot of stuff is legal out there. Here, it's electronic. You know, now it's electronic. It's this constant bombardment. Hey, look at this. Hey, what do you think about this? But that's the perfect example of somebody luring somebody for human trafficking. Was there another question on that? Yeah. Right. Hmm. Right. Right. And here's another thing. Do not open them. You know, all right? It's not good enough to open it and say, oh, I shouldn't get that. When you open something, so if it comes across an address you don't know about, and you open that up, you could get a worm or a virus right in your computer because you've now opened it up. Now, sometimes they'll have double opens. So I say, open this up, then you open this up or download this. But you can get a worm inside your computer. Years ago, I was on a business trip, and I forget the name of it, but it hit Windows, and it literally came up and just said Windows shutting down in 30 seconds, and there's nothing you could do. It was I had to get a fix from Microsoft to fix it, but I don't know where it came from. So anyway, the one other thing I was going to go to this last slide, if you're interested, and the last thing is, you might not see it, but there's some contact information for me. But these top 4 websites, Learn with Justice and humantrafficking.ohio.gov, the Polaris Project, this is all about human trafficking. And of course, the last one is Carroll County Sheriff's Department. And if you do get something suspicious like we were talking about, make sure you get some law enforcement involved. Anybody else? All right, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to come, and you guys stay safe out there, all right?